Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another video. I just wanted to make a quick disclaimer. This interview, we're gonna be talking about some sensitive topics. So mental health is gonna be talked about, suicide, as well as gun violence. And I just wanted to let the audience know that because it could be triggering for some people. And I wanted to just give the heads up. With that being said, I really do hope that you enjoyed the video as much as I enjoyed making it. And stay tuned. So thanks again for watching. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, The Veteran Newbie. Today we have a very special guest of mine. Her name is Tiwanda, aka Gigi, if you know her. We are going to be going over a story of service, resilience, and also sharing a special story that changed the life of many. So welcome to the show, Tiwanda.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Thank you for
coming. Thank you for being here. I appreciate the opportunity.
Of course, thank you for having me. It's just so funny because for those that don't know, we met a few years ago. I think it was 2020.
It had
to be, because you know what? I remember during COVID, you were like, I want to make sure all my people are good, and you always made sure
2020.
You always made sure like we had somewhere to go.
Yes.
Yeah. Volunteering actually at the USO, that's how I met you.
Yes.
So, because I remember, so I got here December 2019.
And we opened in November 2019.
Oh, that's right. Because I remember like all of the, like the events and stuff they were doing at the USO. And I was like, what's a USO? Like besides the airport.
Right.
I've only seen them at the airport. Right. And I was like, why is there a USO on base?
On base.
Yeah. And then I was volunteering, and then just over time, you know, you're always there, and then you got us all together. And
so what did you think about, what did you experience with having a USO on base? I know you're supposed to be asking the questions, but I'm asking the questions.
Okay. No, I love this. No. It's funny because nobody has ever asked me that.
Right.
I think it's cool because it's another way of bringing people together. Yeah. Especially like when it comes to deployments. And like I remember the food drive and doing that. I think every base should have a USO. Every base. Like, I'm surprised not every base has one.
It's starting to be more and more popular now. Okay. Seymour was one of the first to have a USO on base, and so it was kind of like a flagship. Okay. And so a lot of bases you're finding are now having USOs on their bases.
Gotcha.
Which I love working at the USO because, well, volunteering at the USO because, you know, it does keep you in touch with the airmen. And if you're in touch with the military community and you're not ready to let go of that yet, it's really a good place to be where you can still love on the airmen and talk to the airmen and mentor the airmen. And they're still coming through and asking questions that they don't want to ask their leadership. Right. So, you know, they feel a little more comfortable asking someone that has been in leadership or been in that position or just, you know, just a civilian now that can answer their questions without them having any kind of feeling like they've got any kind of repercussions.
I like that. And you know what too? I like that AADD was out of the USO, because when I was at Eielson, we did AADD. It was out of the dorms. But it's like you're just sitting in a room, and you guys just look at each other like, you know, just waiting for
the phone to ring.
Yeah, but then when it's at the USO, pizza's there. You can play games, you know, because it's late night.
You're watching movies. You get to sleep on the couch. You know, it's a lot. It's a more comfortable atmosphere.
Right. Yeah. So no, I really like the idea of a USO. When I was deployed, there was a USO in Aldafra. Yeah. There was a USO there, so that was cool because they made sure people's birthdays were always, you know, addressed. And events and things like that. So it's a huge networking thing. I love it. It's great. I think everyone should volunteer for a USO at least once in their life.
At least once in their life. It's the same to me as the military. I think everybody should have that military experience, just even if it's a minimum of 2 years. Yeah. You know, I think you come out better having done it than not doing it because you just learn so much from it.
Right.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
all these plants.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love it. I feel like the plants bring you to life. You guys can't see it, but there's plants behind the camera, like all over the sides. It's great. It definitely sets
That's
the
another
aura.
reason I picked this room, is because it was just so it's bright and it's comfortable.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's like being in a rainforest.
Yeah. That's what it reminds me of. Yeah. So Tiwanda, actually, so just to give a little bit of background on her. So Tiwanda is a wife, a grandmother of 5, She is a mother of 2. She did have a son that did pass away. His name is Aaron. She has another son named Christian, and she is a certified grief educator. I cannot wait to ask you about that.
I am a certified grief educator.
I've never heard of that, so I'm excited.
And I can't wait to tell you about it because that came up to quench my own grief.
Okay.
So if you're ready to talk about that, we can talk about it now. If you're not, and then we can talk
we'll
about
get
it
into
later.
it in a second. Yeah. We'll
talk about it later.
You are soon to be having your master's in Christian counseling. You have your business called G&G. Is it G&G Virtual Services?
Yes.
Okay, G&G Virtual Services.
Like Griffin and Greer.
Oh, I like that. Okay. And then you have a to-a-T crafting a hobby that you do? Yeah. Okay. So your military background, this is cool because I feel like it's just like she's this and that and bam. She served 25 years in the Air Force.
I did.
Go Air Force. You've been out 8 years.
I've been out 8. I can't believe it. I didn't realize it was 8 years until I was filling out your questionnaire, I was like, oh my God. Last I counted, it was 6.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh my gosh, it's been 8.
Yeah, crazy. Time goes by.
It does.
Like I left active duty. Oh my gosh, this year will be 4 years ago.
Exactly.
Like, how does time fly?
Exactly, it flies.
It's insane. So when you came in, your original FSC was 41NX1. It was a surgical tech, and then you became a first sergeant. So let's back up a little bit, right?
Okay.
And go into this grief educator because I'm super curious on that.
So, I was having a hard time with my grief after my son passed, and it goes into the active shooter thing too, because I didn't really get the grief counseling and the trauma counseling that I should have gotten after the active shooter situation. I went straight into off of active duty in retirement and then taking care of my son as his caregiver. So I was so busy taking care of him that I didn't really have a lot of time to grieve. And then after he passed is when I really started getting into my own grief and trying to figure out. Like I had never had grief counseling. I had never had anyone that was so close to me pass, other than the active shooter situation. That was the first time I actually encountered death so up close and personal. And then when the passing of my son came, I decided to take a grief educator course so that I could help other people through their grief and answer their questions. And the more I took the course, the more I learned about grief, the more it helped me in my own grief. So I kind of did it to help other people get through their grief. And as I learned how to be a grief educator, was my therapy and my own grief counseling. So
interesting. Okay. Now, when you go through grief counseling to become a counselor,
a grief educator,
is it sensitive because someone's trying to teach you how to help others, but yet you're still trying to help yourself in the midst of it all?
It's very sensitive. It's very sensitive. As I was going through the training, it was bringing up a lot of my own personal grief. And as it was bringing up my own personal grief, came how to get through that grief, how to talk to someone who's at. So David Kessler was my instructor for the grief educator course, and he's got.
I saw his name online actually.
Yeah, David Kessler. He's really well known in the grief educator community, and they normally say that there's 5 stages of grief. Well, I learned through David Kessler and Elizabeth Kubler-Ross that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross actually came up with a 6th stage of grief. And that 6th stage of grief is called finding meaning. So you go through the anger and the depression and the bargaining and the acceptance and the I've forgotten the last one, but then that last one is finding meaning. And it made so much sense to me because most people don't find meaning in the passing of their loved one. They don't understand it, and they're more questioning why, and they're angry, and they don't find meaning in it. But I believe that once you get to that you get past that 5th step, and so keep in mind also, grief is not Grief is linear.
Okay.
Grief doesn't go in stages. You can hit the same stage 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
Every time you think that you're through it, something may trigger you and you can go back into grief and you can go back into all of those stages.
Yeah. Okay.
So by the time I think that you find meaning in that passing, you're probably at the end of your grief. And like I said, there's no time frame, there's no time limit. So it can be, somebody might be in grief for 3 years, somebody might be in grief 6 months, some might be in grief in 5 years later, they're still in the same grief.
Okay.
They can get stuck in their grief. And part of being a grief educator is to find where somebody is stuck in their grief and try to get them unstuck and move them through that grief period that they're in.
Yeah.
Whatever cycle that they happen to be in that grief cycle, you can get stuck in that grief cycle.
Right. Okay.
But I think it was probably one of the best things for me. I have talked to a couple of people who were grieving, and my original plan was to be, get on the website and be a certified grief counselor where, people could look for me and they call me and they talk to me. But I find myself more in my circle.
Okay.
When people have things that happen to them, they reach out to me and they ask me the questions and they say, can I talk to you about it? And that's exactly where I'm trying to be. And it goes right along with that whole Christian counseling thing.
Okay, so that's how it goes into that.
That's how it goes into that.
Okay. Well, I will say, now, maybe I'm biased because I already know you, but you are a very easy person to talk to. I mean, even when I met you in the USO, it's just like, oh yeah, I could go and talk to her.
Yeah.
You make the environment very easy. And so I think that, especially you making the decision to go be a grief educator, and there's something, and I don't want to say, there's anything wrong with people that don't do that.
Right.
But I think the fact that you chose to still do that on top of going through the active shooter event, on top of losing your son, I mean, that's a huge, that's a huge thing, in my opinion.
Well, it is a huge thing that other people see, but to me, it's just helping.
Yeah, right.
I just see it as helping people.
Like you're calling.
And helping. And I feel like that. I feel like even 10 years later after the active shooter incident, I'm still talking about it because I still don't want people to be unprepared, and I still want people to know that these things happen, and it's all about the resilience and getting through. And I tell people, thank God I don't look like what I've been through because it's been a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I will say, on top of everything that, you went through, like you said, I mean, you operating the way that you do, it's amazing. And I know you said that, to you it's your normal, but just want to, give you your flowers in how you just continue to move and help people. Right. Because you did 25 years in the military, and you went through such tragic events. Right. And it's so funny because I'm reading the book, The Body Keeps the Score. The Body Keeps Score. I love that book. Oh my gosh. I brought it with me too, just in case.
Oh my gosh. I love that book. I'll talk about it all the time because, and this is why I love it, because I got it originally because, the anniversary of the shooting was April 8th. Yeah. And we just had it. And so I talk about how in March, my brain starts telling me that April 8th is coming. But even though I can redirect my thoughts, my body starts telling me. I start not sleeping and I get anxious and, I'm just, the anxiety goes up. Right. And that's why I originally got that book, The Body Keeps Score, because your body can override your mind. Right. And even though your mind is telling you to move forward and go somewhere else with it, you can always redirect your thoughts, but you can't redirect your body.
I like that. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so I just started the book.
Well, then I'm not going to give it away.
Yeah, but it's so good. And I love, it starts off first talking about veterans. Yeah. I was like, yes. This is the book. This is amazing. Yeah. So now I do want to rewind real quick about you joining the military in general. Okay. So how did you get surgical tech? Did you pick that or did they pick it for you?
So I was I am honestly what they would call a unicorn.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you why I'm a unicorn.
Okay.
And because you will probably never see one again in your life.
Okay.
Before I joined the military, I was a medical assistant.
Okay.
So I was working at I worked at a doctor's urgent care, I worked at a Planned Parenthood, I worked at a doctor's office.
Okay.
And so when I decided to join the Air Force, I wanted a medical job. And because I had gone to school and gotten college credits for being a medical assistant, a surgical assistant job came up, and they were like, you can go straight into the surgical assistant. I was like, cool.
Okay.
So it was keeping me in the medical aspect, which is what I thought I wanted to be at the time. Originally I had wanted to go into nursing. And so when I was a medical assistant and then I got the surgical assistant job, I was like, okay, I can do surgical.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I really, well, let me back up. I didn't realize how much I loved it until I was not doing it anymore.
I actually really like that you said that, because I will say when I joined the military, right, I get to Minot and I'm thinking I'm going to do like hardcore project management. And I get to the office and it says, welcome to customer service. I said, I joined the military to go into customer service.
To go into customer service.
Now, granted, I was 19, so customer service is a very broad statement, you know?
Right.
And so, yeah, I was just like, what? But when I left it, after, especially, and I'm sure you can relate, when you start getting more rank, you start seeing, full picture.
You start seeing bigger pictures.
Yeah, and it's like, once you leave it, like,
and it's the same thing with bases. People are at a certain base and they hate that base. For example, Minot.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate Minot. I hate Minot. But and you don't do the things that are available to you. And then as soon as you leave, you're like, I should have done this and I should have done that, and I would have had a better time if I had, gotten out a little more.
Right.
And I was like that at Travis Air Force Base, and, and it was like in the middle of everything.
Travis is California, right?
In California,
Yeah.
it was 45 minutes from Sacramento, 45 minutes from San Francisco, 6 hours from LA. And believe it or not, I didn't go to LA until I was leaving Travis.
Okay.
And then I was like, yeah, it was pretty cool. I could have done more things. And my thing was, I hated being on the West Coast because I'm from the East Coast and I'm from North Carolina, so I wanted to be close to
East
home.
Coast, baby.
I wanted to be close to home, and I was not going to be happy as long as I was out on the West Coast.
I got you. Yep. Okay. Yeah. And then, so when you got into surgical tech, how long did you do that until you?
Okay, let me tell you.
So this is first sergeant, because I'm like,
I'm going to tell you, I'm a unicorn.
Okay.
I'm a unicorn. This gets a lot of feedback.
Okay.
I went from surgical tech into honor guard.
I always wanted to do honor guard.
I did honor guard at the base for about 3 years.
At Travis?
At Travis.
Okay.
And then I went into recruiting.
You did?
I did.
I didn't know
So
that.
I was a recruiter for 8 years.
No way.
Yes.
What?
And that's how I got back to North Carolina.
So you recruited in North Carolina?
I was a recruiter in North Carolina, in Greensboro, North Carolina.
No way.
And Seymour was our closest base, but my home base was Shaw.
Okay.
So we did our base tours at Seymour and Pope. So I did that for 8 years.
Okay.
Then I went back into the career field, into surgical, and I was a phase 1 instructor. So I moved to Shepherd Air Force Base.
Okay.
And then there was talk of moving all of the medical courses down to Fort Sam Houston at the METC campus. The Medical Education and Training Campus is what it's called.
Okay.
So moving the courses from Shepherd down to Fort Sam Houston, I became the senior enlisted leader over the Air Force, Army, and Navy surgical course.
Oh, shoot.
And it was
Okay.
really, really cool because I was thinking, I was like, you know what? Everybody that's in the Air Force now that's a surgical tech came through my hands. It's like
cool.
every single...
Yeah.
But it was a lot of responsibility because somebody got out there and did something wrong. They would be like, what is Sergeant Griffin doing over there?
Yeah.
And I did have to answer for those, but for the most part, it was really great having my hands in, the Air Force and the overall... numbers of the surgical techs coming into the Air Force.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
So because I was a senior enlisted leader and I was a tech sergeant at the time, one of our first sergeants came through.
We have a special guest joining us today. Everybody welcome.
This is Leo. One of the tech sergeants came through. I mean, one of the first sergeants came through and needed a undershirt for the weekend.
Okay, got it.
And
Yep.
I volunteered because I was doing the job anyway. I was like, I'm taking care of airmen. I'm being mama. I'm being grandma. I'm being daddy. I'm being,
Everything.
counselor. I'm being financial manager. I'm being all of those things that I need to do. So why not just take the turn to do it?
Yeah.
So
shoot.
once I did it as
Okay.
a tech sergeant, I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I did it ever since then. And the day that I put on master sergeant, I put my application in to be a first sergeant.
Okay.
And in November 2011, I went to the First Sergeant Academy.
Wow, that's insane.
And I did it all the way up until I retired in 2018.
Oh, really? Okay. Wow.
So the reason I said I'm a unicorn is because,
Yeah.
believe it or not,
He's like, what's going on?
no, you can't. We're not doing all of that.
He's like, why, Mom?
The reason I said I'm a unicorn is because I had never gone overseas until I went overseas to Korea
really?
to do the Blue Grid podcast speaking.
Okay.
And so I had never deployed. I had never been overseas.
In your whole career?
In my whole career. That's why I said I'm a
Wow.
unicorn. You will not find that. Because it just so
Yeah.
turned out that the series of jobs that I was in and the career fields I was in either weren't deploying at the time that I was in them, or something medical kept me from deploying to go to those places.
Okay.
I did have orders to Korea at one time, but I failed medical, so
Okay,
I wasn't
got it.
able to go.
Okay.
So that's how I've been a unicorn.
That's crazy. Okay. So with you doing first sergeant duty and things like that, how did that, especially you not deploying, right? Do you feel like that changes anything about being a first sergeant, or not really? Because regardless, you're still taking care of people.
I don't think it changes anything.
Okay.
I think there is a certain aspect that you need to have in a deployed location.
Okay.
But it's still taking care of people. It's still taking care of the everyday health, morale, welfare, discipline, leadership. It's all the same whether you're in a deployed location or whether you're not in a deployed location.
Okay. Yep.
And we also find out, later on down the road that you don't necessarily have to be in a deployed location to be in a dangerous location.
Yeah.
Because,
For sure.
the situation that happened on April 8th was not in a deployed location, and, it was normal everyday work environment.
Right.
So
Right.
you do have a lot of people that say, if you've never been deployed, you're not a real airman or a real soldier or whatever. But
yeah.
I don't necessarily agree that doesn't make you a good leader. I think you can be a good leader even though you haven't deployed. There is a different aspect to it while you are deployed, but I don't think it makes you a good or doesn't make you a good leader.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's valid too. Granted, I've never been a first sergeant, but I feel like if a good leader, it doesn't matter where you are. It's all about internally and how you can treat the people around you. So, speaking of, you saying that you don't have to be deployed to be in a dangerous situation.
Right.
I do want to, talk about the event that happened on April 18th, 2016, which is crazy. It's 10 years.
10 years.
Already. So Tiwanda was involved in a very, tragic active shooter incident that happened.
Yes.
And so if you can, go into that with whatever you're comfortable with sharing, what happened on that day.
Friday morning, it was April 8th. Friday morning, typical work day. Going to work in the morning, we had an appointment to do an Article 15.
Okay.
This airman had been he wasn't an airman, he was a tech sergeant, big A airman.
Big A, yeah.
Had gone AWOL for 10 days, and when he came back, we did normal non-judicial punishment actions, which was to offer him an Article 15.
Okay.
He turned down that Article 15 and chose to go for court-martial.
Okay.
So
I didn't know you can actually do that.
you
So that's just an
can,
option.
yeah,
Okay,
you can
okay.
actually turn down the Article 15. If you feel like you've done nothing wrong and you want your day in court, you can choose to go to court.
Okay.
And so he decided he wanted court-martial, so we did the normal rigmarole of he got a lawyer, you go through the JAG Corps, and they set everything up. Well, he fired his lawyer.
Okay.
So about 90 days after, he had this lawyer for about 90 days, and he fired the lawyer. So that means we got to, date starts over and everything
stuff,
starts
right?
over. So now he's got to get a new lawyer.
Yeah.
The new lawyer has to go through
all the notes
paperwork.
and everything.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So he got an ADC this time, and she was pregnant.
Area Defense Counsel, right?
Area
ADC.
Defense Counsel.
Yep. Okay.
And she was pregnant. She ended up having her baby and going on maternity leave, which we know is a matter of months.
Yeah.
Well, when she came back from maternity leave, another 90, he fired her.
Okay.
So now, once again, we've got to go back through the rigmarole of, you know, the paperwork and finding a new lawyer and getting another court date, another trial date.
Yeah, because court and trial, I mean, that stuff takes long already.
It already takes long.
Yeah,
And here we are, you know, we're fighting this system because this should not be taking so long. This should be a quick turnaround. Okay. Why are we paying this tech sergeant, you know, the money that we're paying, and now here we are 9 months later and we're still trying to have this court martial,
right?
When it was obvious he went AWOL for 10 days. What exactly are you fighting? But of course, we have no question. We can't question that. That is his option,
This is right? Yeah,
and that is his choice. So he hired a third lawyer. All of a sudden, his third lawyer called us and said, "Hey, he's willing to take the Article 15." Okay. So we were like, all right, after 9 months, we're ready to serve this Article 15. And normally, you know, when you hear about leadership doesn't like to serve non-judicial punishment or paperwork or any of those things on Fridays. Okay. But we were just so ready to be done with it. And so on that Friday morning, we had set up, you know, his appointment at 8:30 that morning. Okay. Well, he came in that morning. Little did we know he had 2 Glocks and 3 clips, and he was more or less adamant that his intent was to kill the commander. And you know, that day we were in the office, he held me hostage for 20 minutes while he made me pick up the phone and call the commander to my office. Wow. And I'm going to say I was forced to make that phone call. Even though it was something I didn't want to do, it was something I felt that I had to do because we had classes in session at the time. We had, you know, we had staff and we had cadre in the building at the time. And so I felt like if I had said no to that request, of course he would shoot me, and then the squadron would be open to his fire, his firepower. Right.
Because at that time, you're the only person that knew in that moment.
I'm the only person that knew
the weapons.
Exactly, because we were in my office with the door closed and there was no windows.
And that's normal. To go to the first sergeant, you close the door.
You close the door, you talk, and he did not have an MTL with him. He didn't have a supervisor with him, so no one was there to do a uniform inspection on him prior to. So little did I know that he had this weapon. And until he was in the office and he closed the door, and you know, and he closed the door, and it didn't make me think anything because I figured he had questions that he didn't. He wanted some privacy, so he closed the door.
At this time, how long were you already a first sergeant for?
I was a first sergeant for 5.5 years at the time, so seasoned. It wasn't anything new to me. It wasn't a rookie thing that happened to me. It was I was very seasoned first sergeant. I was considered a senior first sergeant at the time. Okay. And you know, it just when you do active shooter practices or protocols or computer-based trainings, you know, they tell you to look for certain things in your shooter. You know, they're going to be agitated, they're going to be sweating, they're going to be, you know, irritated, they're going to be irate, you know, they may be yelling, they may, you know, I got none of that. Okay. None of that. I had no indicators that morning that until I looked up and saw that he had his weapon trained on me.
I can't even imagine how you felt just looking up and seeing that. Like, that's
looking up and seeing that. I will never, ever, ever forget the feeling that I felt. If anybody is, I usually say this, if anybody is an adrenaline junkie and they know how that adrenaline feels as it's coursing through your body, that's exactly what I felt that day. I know what it feels for. I felt like it was endorphin dump. Okay. You know, if that makes sense. Just like I felt everything just kind of drain and like
Yeah,
you just
shocked.
don't. Yeah, shocked. You don't know what to say. You don't know what to do. You look up and you're facing a weapon and it's trained on you, and you realize that this person is watching like every move that you make. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can say. You can't reach for your phone. You can't reach for the computer. You can't call for help. You can't get on the computer. You can't do anything except when he says, pick up the phone and call your commander and tell him to come down here. What do you do? What do you do?
Right.
And so I ended up making that phone call, but I made that phone call with a plan in mind of trying to kind of give him some heads up that something was going on in the office that I couldn't really say, hey, this is what I got going on.
Right.
But I was able to kind of give him warning through my voice, through the words that I was using, the lack of words that I was using.
Okay.
You know.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, when you're on the phone call, was he like, why are you acting like that? Why are you talking like that? Or what's wrong?
He didn't ask.
Okay.
But there were pauses in our conversation. I would say things like, sir, I need you to come to my office. And he would say something like, well, we've got an appointment at 8:30. Is everything okay? Is everything set up? Yes, sir. Well, is everything okay? No, sir.
Right. So it's like,
is he there? Yes, sir.
Gotcha. Okay.
More pause. Is he in your office? Yes, sir. I need you to come to my office. So I kind of gave him some heads up without being able to say what was going on, so that by the time he did end up coming to my office, he already kind of knew something was up. He had a heads up that something was going on without knowing exactly what the situation was.
Okay.
So when he did end up coming to the office, the door was cracked maybe about 3 inches, and when he got to the door, he could see me, but he couldn't see what was going on behind the door.
Okay.
And so when he looked into the door and he saw me, he saw what I want to describe as the look of, for lack of better words, terror on my face. Okay. Because I didn't turn and look over him, or, I wasn't doing any of that. I just kind of kept my eyes on the gunman, kept my face turned toward the gunman, but turned my eyes toward him to let him know, like, hey, I got a situation going on here, and I need you to pick up on it.
ASAP.
ASAP. And he did. He actually knew something was going on, because when he had a choice to make at that time. He had a choice to either come into the office or retreat and go back and call someone, but again, he didn't really know what the situation was at the time, so I don't think he would know what to say to someone that he called, except for, hey, something's wrong. Something's wrong. So he comes into the office, and as soon as he opens the door, he looks behind the door is where he can see the gunman now, and he comes into the office and he closes the door behind him. And I think I can only guesstimate as to what he was thinking, but when I say he closed the door to the office behind him to contain the situation, so that this wouldn't go out of the office and get out of hand, so to speak. And at that time, they exchange words, and at the same time that they're exchanging words, they're advancing on each other. And at the same time that they're advancing on each other, there's gunshots going off. The commander says, "Shirt, go." Shirt is a nickname term for first sergeants, in case anybody's wondering why I say shirt. He says, "Shirt, go." There's gunfire going off. They're fighting. I hear him get hit with the weapon. I hear him get shot. Apparently it wasn't a fatal wound, when I hear that, because there are 3 shots before I even get out of the office. There are 6 more as I'm running down the hall, so I don't know what kind of scuffle or struggle that was going on in there, but the last 6 that I heard, I knew that 3 were before I left the office, and I knew that 1 had hit him. But the 6 that I heard, I didn't know if they were at me. I didn't know what was going on in the office. I just knew. I was just running, and I'm hearing shots, and I don't know if they're, because all I know is that I'm a witness.
Yeah.
Get rid of witnesses, because right now she's the only person that can tell exactly what's going on, who, what, when, where, and how, why and how.
Right.
So I'm trying to get to safety. I'm trying to make sure, these shots aren't following me. I don't know that, but eventually I do get to safety, and I call 911 and I activate the active shooter protocol, and based off of our just plain old based off of our training for active shooters, I say, this is who it was, because I still didn't know if he was after me. I still didn't know if he was going to come find me. I didn't know if I was going to live through that situation. So I wanted them to know everything. It's, up front.
Technically, at that moment, you are the last person to be able to let people know.
I'm the only person to let people know. As I'm running down the hall, I'm saying active shooter, close, duck, hide, go in your office, call 911, we have an active shooter. I'm doing all of that. And while I'm on the phone with security forces, I'm saying, this is who it is. The commander's been shot. I don't know his status. This is where it is. It's in my office. I don't know what's going on. I don't know where the gunman is now. I don't hear any sounds, and I'm telling them all this information in case I don't make it through this thing, that they at least know who, what, when, where, and how that it was. And yeah, that was that day.
Wow.
So the commander ended up killed, and the gunman took his own life in the same office.
Okay. Now, how soon later did you, because obviously in that moment you're like, yeah, you don't know what's going on, he's coming after me. How soon later did you find out that, the threat was no longer there, because he did end up shooting himself?
We didn't know for at least 10, maybe 15 minutes, because little did we know that they were both in the office with the door in the struggle. The door closed back, so there was no telling what was going on in there. We thought, we weren't sure. There were helicopters in the air. They were looking for him in case he had escaped or gotten out of the building. So they didn't know that there was no threat anymore until they actually got access to the office and was able to go in and see both of them lying in the office.
Gotcha. Okay. And so the individual, Lieutenant Colonel William A. Schrader, that's his name.
Yes.
And he was a weather spec ops.
Weather
spec ops. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Because you guys were in a special spec ops unit.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Now, this may be a silly question, but
no questions.
Is there any difference between active shooter drills for a spec ops unit? Because I'm thinking spec ops unit, like, they're trained a little different.
They are trained a little different. They are trained different. And let me tell you, the difference in a special ops unit and what I can tell in another unit.
Okay.
When they heard gunshots, they started running toward the gunshots.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm sure it's a little different.
They had to be held back from the gunshots.
Okay.
Which is another, Colonel Schrader was special ops weather, and I'm sure that played into his mind when he had to make that decision whether to go into the office or not. I'm sure had he felt he could not contain or control the situation, he wouldn't have gone in. Okay. But at that time, you also, all right, I'm going in.
Yeah, right.
I hope it turns out in my favor.
Right.
This one did not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it didn't work in his favor. But I give him all kudos for taking charge and taking the lead and saving myself, saving the squadron, saving 175 students plus about 30 staff. Yeah. So a good 200 plus people, including myself, that he felt that he could have control of the situation, because I feel like his training and his upbringing and his training in the Air Force trained him for situations like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, it didn't turn out in his favor.
Right. And I feel like, you know, kind of like what you said about training, right? You get trained a certain way, but when you're in that moment, you know, how they say fight or flight, but a lot of people don't talk about freeze, you know? And so it's just, what do you do? I don't know, because you never been in that moment before. And so for him to go in there and
Right.
do what he did, I mean, that's huge. Because like you said, I mean, any individual could have done whatever they want to do. At the end of the day, like, that's on them. It's, no one can predict that situation happening.
No one can predict how that's going to turn out.
But for the fact that he went in there, you know, and told you to go, it's like, that's a huge deal. And then made sure to contain it in that office too, you know.
Now, you mentioned fight or flight. And we talk about that when I go and I talk to the different bases.
Okay.
You know, I talk about what choices I had. You know, I had some choices to make. I could have chosen to fight.
Right.
I could have stayed and fought with him, with the anticipation that one or both of us would die. But at the same time, we got to remember safety of the squadron too. Right. So had I fought with him and we both died, then he's got. We don't know what's going to happen, and somebody has to ensure the safety of the squadron. You know, there was. I look back and I try to ask myself, is there any possible way that no one would have lost their life that day? And I can't see how. It would have been either myself, or it would have been the commander, or it would have been him, or it would have been somebody else, or more, many more people. Right. So, you know, fortunately, but unfortunately, social media was around at the time. Yeah. And when you read about yourself on social media about how they don't make first sergeants like they used to, or, you know, if she was a male, this would have never happened, and she should have stayed and she should have fought. She should have went down with the commander. She should have.
Because it's like, people have no right to say when you're not in that situation at the end of the day.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So I can only imagine how much that hurt you reading those comments.
It did. I read about how much I was a coward, you know, and I read about how, because, you know, he said, sure, go, and I obeyed. I should have disobeyed. I should have disobeyed that direct order. That was one direct order I should have disobeyed, is what they were saying. I had and still have lots of survivor's guilt because of the decisions that I made that day. Not to say that they were right or wrong, but they were the decisions that I made in that instant, and those are the decisions that I have to live with every day. Right. Doesn't make things easier. Right. Doesn't make things, you know, any better. Right. But those are the decisions that I made that day, and that's what I have to live with. But I'm good with the least amount of lives lost that day. Right. You know, I don't see anything else. I don't see any other way it could have turned out.
Yeah. And it's a good point that you make about fight or flight, but not only think about yourself, but like you said, at that point, you're thinking about the whole unit. Right. So it's unfair to say coulda, woulda, shoulda, because you're not only thinking about yourself, you're not even thinking about only the people in that room. You're thinking about hundreds of other people, you know, and so it's just one of those things. I mean, I feel like when, granted, I've never been in that situation, but you try to do the best you can the way you think is the best in that situation. You know? And so,
and you know, I can woulda, coulda, shoulda it to death. Right. And you know, 10 years later, I'm still woulda, coulda, shoulda it. Yeah. And when I talk to the masses and I talk to the groups, I actually ask them, who in here could have seen another way to do it, and what would that be? Yep. And I think one person out of the 10 years, and that was most recently last week, actually said, I honestly would have stayed and fought. One person said that. One person. Right. And I said, you know what? I appreciate that. I appreciate your honesty, because it was an option. It was an option, and it wasn't the option that I chose, because I had to look out for everybody. I had to look out for it. You know, you take me out and you take him out, you're leaving everybody else open.
Yeah.
And little did I know, when I'm looking down the barrel of a Glock,
Right.
I didn't know that he had 2 and 3 clips.
That's a good point.
And
yeah.
more weapons of destruction out in the car.
Right.
I didn't know how much destruction he had planned.
Right.
You know, because he planned to take everything that stood in his way.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that had I stood in his way and said, no, I'm not calling, you know, okay,
yeah.
I'm shot, and now he's going to do it anyway.
Right. Or go find him.
Or
and
go,
then on
he's
the
going to
route,
go find him and en route. Exactly.
the other
Everybody
people.
that
You never know.
stands in front of you.
Right.
So, yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it, because I
No
feel
problem.
like, so I will say, April, I was in tech school when this happened. I just joined the military. I joined in January 2016. And I remember hearing about it. And like you said, social media wasn't that big, you know, so you heard about it a little bit. It wasn't until I got to Minot that people were talking about it. And I was like, well, what's this event like where we're talking about? And so, you know, people were just going off of what they knew. It's like, oh, the active shooter.
Right.
Somebody got shot and killed, and then that's all you heard.
That's all you heard.
Yeah, and so you didn't really hear much about it.
No.
And then
it was very quiet and hush hush for 2 years.
And why do you think that? Is it just because it was under investigation?
Because of the investigation, and the tech sergeant's family was suing the Air Force.
Okay.
There was a lot of legal aspects that were going on. There was a lot of investigation between OSI and the FBI and all of the legal aspects and the legal office.
Okay.
I was not allowed to talk about it, and because everything kind of got brushed under the rug for 2 years, by the time I came out with what really happened, you know, here's what really went on in there. People had kind of forgotten about it, and so when I first started speaking about it, people were coming up to me saying, well, we're just glad that to hear the story, because we never knew exactly what happened. All we knew is that there was an active shooter, the commander died, and the first sergeant got away. That's all we knew.
That's all you know.
And so now I go around and I tell them it wasn't just about an active shooter showed up, the commander got shot, the first sergeant ran away. It was a lot of detail, and it was a lot more intricate than that, and there was a lot of thought and process that went into what happened. And so I'm glad to be able to talk to people and tell them exactly what happened, because they didn't know what happened to me. They were like, she just disappeared. We don't even know what the story was. So I'm out there and I'm telling people exactly what the story was, because believe it or not, I tell people this story too. 10 years prior to my incident was another incident with another first sergeant.
Really? Oh,
her name was Janet McWilliams. Okay. And she was a first sergeant at the 342nd Training Squadron, the same squadron I was a first sergeant in. She had discharged, they had discharged one of their students, and I want to say a week or two later, she got a bomb in the mail.
No way.
And she opened it in her office, and it blew up.
No.
And it blew off like one of her hands and some fingers on another hand, and she got shrapnel in her eye, and she got like 80-degree burns all over her body. It was horrible. But she doesn't talk about it, and she didn't share her story, and she didn't make it public like I do. I try to honor her wishes, but I do let people know that there was an incident 10 years prior to mine that it still happens. Yes. It still happens. It's still happening, and we have got to be careful. We've got to be aware of the dangers. And that's why I said you don't have to be deployed. You don't have to be in a deployed location to face dangers. This was friendly fire. This was somebody that wears our uniform. You know, and you expect people in your same uniform and your like uniform to be family. You expect that to be
my brother, that's my sister.
That's my brother, that's my sister. That's a fraternity, that's a sorority that you got jumped into. You know what I mean? It's family. You don't expect that person in that uniform to be holding a gun to you. And willing to shoot you. for their cause. You just don't expect that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think kind of what you said about training. It's like you think that people might look a certain way or whatever the case may be, and it's like, no, that's not always the case, or they may not show signs.
Right. Exactly.
This is gonna happen today.
No.
Now.
Nothing.
And I will say, I'm glad. That's why I'm really glad that we got to be able to speak and you share your story. And even, I'm sorry, what was her name? The first sergeant that had the
Janet
incident?
McWilliams.
Janet McWilliams. Even though she's not sharing her story, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
It's still important to know these things, and you don't want people to forget.
You don't want people to forget. You don't want people to forget. And I understand why she, it may have been a private moment for her, and it is still probably a very private moment for her, but people need to know the history.
Right.
People need to know the history, especially in a unit that, I say, certain career fields, certain units have higher risks. When you're dealing with people that are special ops.
Yeah.
This is when you're a special ops troop. It is ingrained in you. That is something that you just have.
Yeah.
And it is when you are threatened, or you're threatening to take that away from somebody,
right,
and they don't have anywhere else to go, and they don't have anything else to do. Now, he had been prior Green Beret in the Army. He had been in FBI, and he had issues in both of those, which was why he was released from both of those.
Okay.
We should have done a better with the background check, with trying to with getting his information and letting him come into the Air Force.
Yeah.
They would have seen that he had prior history of PTSD with these other branches.
Wow. And it's unfortunate when things like that come up after something tragic happens.
After something tragic happens. When we saw clues.
Okay.
And we tried to bring them to the attention of the legal office. We tried to bring that to the attention of everybody that would listen. But because he technically wasn't a direct threat yet, he wasn't a threat yet. He hadn't verbally threatened anyone yet.
Right. So everything's assumption. Like,
everything is an assumption.
He's acting like this. Maybe he just had a long day.
Maybe just
whatever
he had a long
the case
day.
may be. Yeah.
And you know what they say? You can't give an Article 15 to somebody because they're weird. You can't give an Article 15 to somebody because you just don't like them. Something's off about them.
Yeah, or they're different.
Yeah,
or,
you can't do that. So that was that wasn't in the cards for that.
Gotcha. I was reading articles about the incident, and I do want to shed light on Colonel Schrader. So somebody has it, because it seems like he was a great, person. Obviously,
absolutely,
he protected his people, and wanted to look out for you and the whole unit.
Right.
So someone said he always did the right thing the right way, especially when it was a tough decision. Bill was patient, never vindictive, slow to anger. Would you agree to that?
I do agree with that. I do agree with that. I honestly had never seen Colonel Schrader lose his temper.
Okay.
I had never seen him make a decision based on personal thoughts.
Okay.
Every time he made a decision, especially when we were dealing with the airmen and their futures, he was very fair. He was very, very fair. And I think sometimes I was the hard one. I was like, what do you mean? Why? And I just could, but he was the commander, and at the end of the day, it was his decision.
Yeah.
And it was the right decision. That's why he got paid the big bucks, and these guys paid to do the paperwork. Yeah. But he was a very fair person. He was very, very slow to anger. Very, very. Very good all around, and I don't think of anybody that worked for him that could say anything negative about him.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and so because I know that they ended up naming one of the buildings after his name, right?
They did.
Okay, and what building specifically? Is it at the same unit? Or
no,
where is
it's in Florida. At one of the detachments at the AFSOC. Base.
Yeah. As Air Force Special Ops Center.
Yes,
right?
Air Force Special Ops Center.
Yep.
When I went down to MacDill, No, Hurlburt. It's in Hurlburt.
Hurlburt Field,
It's in
yeah.
Hurlburt Field.
Okay.
When I went down to Hurlburt Field and I addressed the AFSOC community there, they took me around and I was actually able to see the building and the
Wow,
naming
that's cool.
and yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
they have a lot of memorials up on Lackland
Okay.
at the AFSOC building at Lackland. And then they named the AFSOC building in Hurlburt after him.
Wow, that's awesome.
He is memorialized forever.
Yeah. How long did that take from when the incident happened to that happening?
It went in phases.
Okay.
So the memorials went up first on Lackland.
Okay.
There are memorials inside the building. There's a memorial outside on the drill pad where they actually work out, the workout pad at the AFSOC building. And then the AFSOC base. I think they did that building. It probably took, I want to say two years after he passed that the actual building was renamed.
Okay.
But the memorials went up.
We have a second guest visitor
another
here.
guest. Here she is. This is Lily. I knew she wasn't going to be able to stand still.
Yeah, that's okay. But okay, so 2 years. I feel like it's not too bad.
No, it wasn't too bad.
Because especially me coming from CE and construction, things take forever.
Things take forever. So I think that was kind of expedited for him.
Yeah, for sure.
I can't remember exactly when, but I do remember seeing it on, they had a dedication ceremony, and I watched the dedication ceremony.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so were family members and like friends of the people of the unit able to go, or
they were?
Okay.
Yeah, family was able to go.
Nice.
They had a big to do. Wow. So I didn't go
good.
personally,
Okay.
but I did watch it online.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So now, with the event that happened, aftermath of just going through life and dealing with life, because it's like, okay, I've never had a baby, right? But hear me out, right? So when you have a baby, it's like the next day, it's like, well, what do I do now? This thing's like just here, and I have to feed it and do this. It's like after that, the next day, you're like, what does tomorrow look like?
What does tomorrow look like?
You know? So how was that for you and trying to figure that out?
Honestly, I will tell you from a medic background.
Okay.
I'm a medic.
Yeah.
I wasn't raised in the special ops world.
Okay.
It was really odd for me because we shut down for 2 days.
Okay.
We basically shut down the schoolhouse and had our time to grieve and mourn and process what happened for 2 days. 2 days later, the schoolhouse opened back up, so school was back in session.
Okay. Wow.
We had instructors who were prior PJs and CCTs and TACPs.
Okay.
And students who were trying to be. So these people are trained to be on the battlefield. One of their guys go down, they are patching them up and they're moving forward. They're pushing through. And that's exactly what happened in this incident. 2 days later, they were back on the field and they were pushing through.
Gotcha.
And like I said, I'm a medic. I'm not used to that. So I'm now in a dilemma because I'm like, my squadron is back to work. Yeah. I should be back to work. I shouldn't be at home dealing with my feelings and feeling sorry for myself and down in the dumps. And guess what? My entire squadron just went through something.
Yeah.
I did too, and so did they. We all lost our commander. It wasn't just about me. So I pushed through and I went back to work too because I still was a leader. I was still in charge of taking care of my people, especially in this situation.
Right.
I don't have time to go down.
Right.
I've got to be there for my people. I've got to help them through this while I'm trying to help myself through this. So it was very hard to get back into the swing of things and get back into the groove and be the first sergeant that I wanted to be, or that I felt like I should be, because I still had a problem dealing with students. I didn't want to deal with students. I didn't want to have anything to do with anybody. I just want, I had an additional duty that were taking care of the students, and I said, you know what, I will deal with the admin. I will do the paperwork. But I will tell you, as I sat in that makeshift office, because my office was a crime scene at the time, as I sat in that makeshift office, every time a student went past the door, I was on pins and needles.
Right.
So it took a really long time for me to be able to get back into, and honestly, I didn't until I got back to Seymour, I was put at the wing staff agency. Which, that's when I first got there, and I was at the wing staff agency for like 90 days. And at the wing staff agency, I only had maybe 25 people under me total. And that was because I had taken a step back, and I was like, okay, baby steps, get my feet wet again, trying to get back into the groove, trying to get back into the feeling of dealing with airmen. And I'll tell you, the very first time I had to do an Article 15, which was at Seymour, when that guy showed up at my office in his blues.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
I literally had a panic attack. I got up and walked out of my office. He walked in my office, I walked out of my office, and I went down the hallway, and I was just pacing, and I was, near panic attack. And I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Yeah.
And it took a long time. It took a really long time for me to be able to do the job to my satisfaction. And my satisfaction was back to 100%. I need to be able to give my squadron and my people 100% of me. And it took a really long time. It took literally two and a half years to get back to that. But at this point then, my son was diagnosed with brain cancer.
Wow.
He was diagnosed with a terminal rare brain cancer, which was called glioblastoma. And, I'm not through my trauma, still dealing with my trauma. We're only talking 8 or 9 months after the incident that he gets his diagnosis. And I'm trying, he was still in San Antonio, and I'm trying to be, super first sergeant over here at my squadron, but I'm trying to be super mom over here, trying to take care of him. And I think the day that I decided that it was time for me to retire was, I was talking to one of his doctors on the phone in my car. I was on a long distance call with his doctor, and one of my guys came up to the window, knocked on the window. Knock, knock, knock. Sure, we got a meeting in 5 minutes. And I said, no. Yeah, I can't. I'm now splitting my time. I'm splitting my 100%. I'm splitting between the squadron and my son, and both of them deserve 100%, and neither one is getting 100%. So I had always said, if I get to the point where I cannot give 100% of myself, it's time to hang the diamond up and take care of my family. So that's what I ended up doing.
And when you were saying about the 5 or 6 stages of going through that, it's almost as if like you couldn't even finish.
I couldn't. And
because you just
and when I finally started seeking mental health, I had been diagnosed with compound trauma because of that, because I never really dealt with the first trauma. When the second trauma came forward, it just kind of pounded on top of that, so it was compound trauma because I never did get through the first issue. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Wow. And so do you feel like as you're still in, but you're now planning on retiring, do you feel like you were able to get proper help while being in, or did you get it when you retired?
I felt I probably could have gotten proper help while I was in. I did go to mental health while I was in. But I felt like it was more being managed by medication than therapy. So
Okay.
it was less therapy, more medication while I was in. Once I got out, I didn't push it because I had put myself 100% into my son and his situation. Once he passed is when I actually started getting the therapeutic portion of the therapy.
Okay.
Once he passed, I started going to one-on-one counseling with a psychologist. I started doing group therapy with the VA.
Okay.
I started doing
Wow.
one-on-one counseling with a psychologist with the VA.
Okay.
And those actually helped me more than just because, you know, they say, I see nothing wrong with medication. There's absolutely nothing wrong with medication, but with medication has to be therapy.
Okay.
Because I think they go hand in hand.
Okay.
You shouldn't do one without the other. You shouldn't do therapy. You can do therapy and not need medication, but if you're on medication, you need to have the therapy to go with it.
Okay.
Because it doesn't just work with one component. Both components work together.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
No, yeah, that makes sense. I feel like, of course, there's a big stigma with, you know, people getting on medication, things like that. But
especially while you're active duty. People don't want to go to mental health while they're active duty.
Right.
People don't want to take medication while they're active duty.
For sure.
And I'm here to tell you, as a person who went to mental health while on active duty with a security clearance, it didn't bother me.
Okay.
It didn't bother me as far as my job is concerned. It didn't bother me as far as my clearance was concerned. I don't know if it's because it was such a big situation that happened and everybody kind of knew about it, but I wasn't worried about losing my clearance or losing my job or losing anything in the Air Force because I sought mental health or because I was on medication.
Okay.
I am not one of those people that experience anything negative for going to mental health.
Gotcha.
I can understand why people would.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially if you have a different kind of job than what I had.
Yeah, yeah.
But I am not one that had a negative effect from seeking mental health or being on medication while I was active duty.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was going to say, so because I know like security forces, for instance.
For sure.
If they're, you know, they go to mental health and I mean, the next step is now taking your weapon away. And now everyone wants to know, well, why is your weapon gone? And it starts this whole gossip rumor thing and it can lead the member to going down a worse path than what they started. So I agree. It kind of just depends, you know, on your job and what you're doing. Which it's one of those tricky things, right?
It's one of those tricky things. And it's one of those where you have to determine what's best for you.
Right. For sure.
Right.
Yeah. No, I agree. So there was actually a quote that I pulled from The Body Keeps the Score that, and it ties into everything we just talked about, that I want to know your opinion, if you agree. Because they talk about how people are able to find their way back, to get this new understanding of kind of who they are, what happened, whatever the traumatic event was. And so it says, for real change to take place, the body needs to learn that the danger has passed and to live in the reality of the present. Do you agree with that?
I do.
I feel like that can be, you know, a controversial statement, you know. Of course, everyone has their own opinion, but
the reason that I say, I personally believe that your body does need to realize that the danger is over. The reason that we still have anxiety, the reason we still are on anxiety meds or anxiety pills is because when we are in our subconscious can't determine that the threat is over.
Got it. Okay.
And once your body determines that the threat is over and it starts to live in reality, I have to remind myself all the time that there is no threat. There is no, especially when I go on the bases or when I see airmen in blues, I have to remember and tell myself this is not a threat.
Yeah.
And once I tell myself this is not a threat, I can feel myself relax. So I think that as long as your mind is staying in that traumatic place, it's never going to start healing until you start realizing that this is not a threat to me anymore.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's one of those constant, you know, however constant you need it to be, affirmation of this is okay.
This is okay.
I'm safe.
This is
okay.
okay.
All right. You know.
And I still have moments where, you know, even though my issue wasn't being in a crowd, I don't like being in crowds because I don't have control. I can't control everybody in that crowd. I can't see everything. I can't see everybody. I don't know who's doing what. I don't know who's holding what. I don't know who's carrying what.
Yeah, right. You just don't know.
You just don't know. Especially in today's world, things pop off like quick. Yeah. And you know, I am always on the offensive. I am always, you know, anxious. When my husband and I go out to eat, you know, I got to be facing the door. He stopped. That was a fight that he stopped a long time ago because he's like, well, I want to be. I'm the guy, and I'm like, yeah, I get you, but you know, the way my PTSD is set up,
right?
Not gonna happen.
Right? Yeah,
it's not gonna happen
now.
Right? Because I've got to be vigilant. I've got to look for people. I'm looking at when people come in and they've got bulk. You know, they got bulk in their side, or you know, it could be a phone, and I'm like, well, you know, what is that? It's just there.
Yeah.
I have to tell myself this is not a threat.
Yeah.
Walked into Dollar General the other day, maybe a couple weeks ago. There's a guy in there shopping. He's just shopping. He's got a gun on his hip. I walked out. I can go to another store.
Yeah.
I don't want to be around it. I don't want to be around him. You know, he's minding his business. Yeah. He's not a threat to anybody, but I'd rather not be around it because at any moment, it could pop off.
Right.
So I'd rather just not deal with it.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, that's okay, right? Like everyone has their isms or whatever, especially going through a traumatic experience.
Exactly.
You know, everyone's different, and so maybe you don't like the color of red or whatever the case may be.
Right.
Well, that's okay. You know, then let's not have this around you.
Exactly.
Or let me just go to another store.
I'll just go to another store. No big deal. Yeah. No big deal. Instead, and I'm not going to go in there and freak out. Oh my God. No, no. I just. Whoop.
Right. So even with navigating, you know, through life and, you know, your everyday, if there was advice you would give to leaders, maybe that is for sergeants or commanders or whoever that is going through grief within their units, what do you think is the best advice that you could give them on how to, you know, just stay strong? Not even just stay strong, but how do you continue in leading and making sure your people are okay?
Because I've been through grief myself. Yeah. I feel like I would be a better advocate for somebody going through grief. If I had never been through grief myself, of course, you don't know what they're going through. But my advice would be to, just because you haven't lived through it and you haven't had that experience, educate yourself on it. Because if you're not educated on it, you can't help the next guy through it. Right. If you don't know that, you know, if you don't know the basics of grief, which means, you know, it being linear versus, you know, going in stages, and, you know, there's a distinct track that you have to go through as far as your stages go, that's not going to work, because then you don't understand why people are going back and forth, and why some people get stuck, and why people are on the up and down, and you know, well, you know, I still get people saying, this happened 10 years ago, why are you still talking about it? You know what I'm saying? Your son died 4 years ago. Why are you still grieving?
Never, doesn't it?
Those people just don't know that how grief works. Fortunately for you, you haven't had to experience grief. That you don't know that that's not how it works. Right.
I mean? Fortunately, yes, for sure. Well, one, you know, talking about grief, like, I really appreciate you talking about, you know, especially your son Aaron that passed, and Colonel Strader that passed. Again, I just think it's so important to be able to say their name, and like, we didn't forget about you. You know, like, you know, I want to share the story and let people know how great and amazing these people were. You know, when your son passed, were you still in the military, or you had already retired?
I had retired. I retired. I retired at 18. He passed in 22.
Okay. I know you said you were going through group therapy with the VA and things like that. Do you feel like you had good support through the VA and making sure
I do. Okay? I do. I feel like once I got, you know, I was worried about the VA when I first got out.
I think everyone is.
Yeah, you hear the horror stories. Yeah, you hear the horror stories about how they're horrible with mental health, and they're, you know, this was at the time where people were going and killing themselves at the VA in the lobbies, and I was really worried about my mental health treatment and how the VA was going to receive me.
Okay.
But honestly, there were so many helping mechanisms within the VA that I really thrived, because one of the things that helped with the VA was we were in a virtual group.
Okay.
Because it was during COVID. So we were in a virtual mental health group, and it was of all branches. It was based out of Fayetteville, so most of them were Army, but it was a grief support group for any kind of grief. It didn't have to be your child, it didn't have to be your husband or your spouse, but this was just people who had been going through grief. So it was really good to be able to get with people who were feeling the same things I was feeling, who were, whether they were 6 months out, 1 year out, 3 years out, 2 months out, it didn't matter. We all felt the same. I was on a Facebook group for glioblastoma parents.
Okay.
So when I was in that Facebook group with glioblastoma parents, that was very helpful because there's nothing like losing your child. It's not the same as losing a parent or losing a spouse or losing a brother or sister. But when you lose your child, there's a whole different aspect in that. And then from that group, I joined another Zoom meeting, a Zoom group, and this was for glioblastoma patients, period. So this was, I met about 2 or 3 women. One lost her son like 30 days, like April 15th. And then I lost Aaron May 15th. And then another lady lost her son, like in October, and we became very, very close because we had all lost our children around the same times, and we were coaxing each other through it. We were talking each other through it. I remember being in the airport, and I think I was coming back from one of my trips. I don't know if it was Hawaii or not. But one of my girlfriends called and she said, he's got the death rattle, and we were like, oh my gosh. And we knew the stages that these were coming, and we knew that we were going to lose him soon. And I remember being in the airport, and I just said, can you talk? And I just called her and just let her cry. And within that group, we had a young lady who lost her father and a young lady who lost her husband, which was the lady's daughter. We had a lady who was, her husband was going through it. So, we were there as people who had losses, and we're coaxing her along and trying to get her through this, and then she loses him, and then all of these, being in the right place at the right time and being with the right people definitely helped me along. But with the VA was instrumental in putting me in the right places to meet the right people.
I'm glad, because a lot of people the experiences are different with the VA.
I was worried about the VA originally.
Well, and I'm very glad that you had a good experience with that, especially with losing your son, and then surviving the active shooter incident, because it's just, you just don't know what you're gonna get. And I like to ask people, how was your experience with the VA when you got out? Because I feel like for those that are still in, it's a concern, right? It is a concern. And rightfully so. I found that it depends on kind of what VA you're going to,
Very true.
The one in Vegas is amazing, but maybe one in Tennessee is not so great,
Right. So I think that, VAs that are around bases that are used to seeing the population are probably better.
I would agree with that.
You end up like my brother. He had a horrible VA experience in Charlotte, but there's no bases in Charlotte, and they're not used to having people around. But you got the VA here, you've got the VA down in Greenville that's got all these bases in North Carolina that they really don't have a lot of chances to mess it up.
Right. No, good point. So now with everything everything you went through without your career, right? Professionally, personally, what is one thing that you loved most about your career? It doesn't have to be one, but we'll just say like top 2.
I would have to say what I was afforded to be able to take away.
Okay.
What I was afforded to be able to take away. I've gotten so many experiences that I never would have had I not joined the Air Force.
Okay.
The experiences as far as meeting the people that I've met, learning about the people that I've learned about, just, you know, if I could do it all over again, I would do it all over again, because I've met some of the most amazing people.
Yeah.
And I've met some of the most genuine friends. And, you know, I've spent longer in the military than I did not in the military.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
And I say I've got some very good childhood friends, but I've got some really good military friends that are like my
life.
Family. That's my family, and they're going to be my family forever,
for sure.
So I would say one of the greatest takeaways from the military is the things that I've been able to take away from it, which would be the experiences.
Okay.
My second would be being able to help people. Being able to help people. I don't think I would have learned my purpose without it.
Okay.
Because I think I would have been all over the place trying to figure myself out and trying to figure out where I would best
belong.
Yeah, where do I best belong in here? And I tell people as even through the experience that I had as far as the active shooter is concerned, I've had the best career. Yeah.
I've had the best career, and I wouldn't change it for anything.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even change that because I've grown so much from it. You know, I used to ask, why me? Why did this happen to me? Well, we don't know why things happen to us until later on when that aha moment comes. And why didn't I die that day on April 8th? Because I needed to be here for my son when he needed me later. And I no longer ask why me, because he knew, God knew that I was going to need to be there for him, and I needed to be around. So
that was really nicely said.
Well, thank you.
That was awesome. Now, as one of my last questions, I like to ask everybody. Now, because you retired, I'm going to ask you, what advice do you have to someone that's getting ready to retire and going into the civilian life?
My advice would depend on what they plan to do with their second half.
Okay.
And the reason I call it their second half, yeah, it's their second half. It could either be somebody's second half or their third half, because sometimes if you're young enough and you retire, you're going to get another job, and you're going to go into, you know, something that you're going to do for the next X amount of years. So that's your second half, and then your third half is to like kind of just live it out, right?
Yeah.
But I call it my second half because I knew that I wasn't going to want to get into another full-time job. I am done with the get up at 7:30, get up at 5:30, 6:30, being at work at 7:30 until 5:30, 6 o'clock, wearing, you know, a set amount of, this is the uniform of the day, this is what we're going to wear, or you got to wear business casual, or you got to find something to wear.
Right.
I was like, I'm not getting ready to do all of that. I think it depends on what you plan to do with your second half.
Yeah.
If you're planning on, I knew from being a single mom for a long time, I always said, if I'm not married, I'm going to stay in and I'm going to ride it out all the way through until they put me out.
Okay.
I knew that if I was married and I had a husband who was willing to, you know, take care of me and realize that all the work that I had put in, I knew that I was going to say, I'm retiring and I'm not going to work. My husband's going to work. And I'm going to just hang out and do what I want to do.
Okay.
Which is what I ended up doing.
Yeah.
Because I knew when I was taking TAP that they were like, let's do the resume class. And I was like, no resume. No resume for, I'm not working.
Yeah.
But,
That's funny.
you know,
I do find myself doing a resume because, you know, I might want to go and do a little part-time something here or a little part-time something there.
For sure.
But I find myself being so busy and keeping myself busy with the traveling and the speaking engagements and the USO.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about any of that stuff.
Okay.
So I don't necessarily... I don't necessarily have specific advice for somebody that's retiring, except do your research, do the skill bridge. I'm going to tell you the hardest thing, as you found out about getting out and as far as being retired, is identity. You have to know your identity. Have a sense of your own identity versus who you were in the military, because I'm telling you, they don't care about that. Once you get out, they don't care about your rank. They don't care about your medals. They don't care about your awards. They don't care about any of that. Can you do the job?
Yes.
And one of the things that I talk about when I talk to the masses is, you know, we've all heard it. If anything happens to you one day, they're going to replace you just like that.
Yup.
And they do.
Right. And they do.
And they do. And they don't look back. And they don't worry about you. And they don't worry about where'd you go and how did you do it and how did you do this and how did you do that.
Yep.
The new person's going to come in and they're going to say, oh, this is how she did it. Throw that out and have their own way.
That's a good point.
I've seen it. I've seen it happen. I've seen it with the whole active shooter thing. That, you know, we had a new commander within 2 weeks. They did an assumption of command, so they changed the name of the squadron.
Yeah.
They just, you know, it's a whole different concept now.
Yeah. Right.
And the world does move forward. And just know that. Know that you're going to be replaced and that you were not the end-all be-all in that position.
Right.
And that you have got to set yourself up for your future, because when you start over, you literally start over.
Yeah.
From the bottom. They don't care what... They don't care.
They don't care.
You start over. So, you know, do the skill bridges and do the
networking and all that.
Do the networking. Do all of that thing. Do all of that, because it all makes sense.
Yeah. No,
it all makes sense. And it's sometimes it's about who you know. So do the networking.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. No, I think that's really good advice. Real quick, I want to pause because your business, your G&G Virtual Services, really quick.
G&G Virtual Services.
About that a little
so
bit?
G&G Virtual Services is, and it's a virtual service because you don't have to meet with people to do this. This is it's a call center, work from home job. And basically I set people up so that they can work from home. They can work for a different variety of organizations, and it could be something as simple as, you know, Books A Million or Dick's Sporting Goods or Lowe's or Home Depot. It can be any of those as a customer service rep. And so many people are looking for legitimate work from home jobs. And one of the reasons that I like I work with Arise, and Arise is a legitimate work from home company. It's not one of those that you got to worry about people, you know, pulling the rug
Scamming
from under you or scamming you or any of that kind of thing. And you can work, it's flexible. You work your own hours, you choose your own hours, you choose what days you work, you choose what days you're off. Anybody who's looking to work from home, hit me up. I can definitely get you involved with Arise. But it is for people who just want to, you know, you can work 15 hours a week. I think that's the minimum. You have to work 15 hours a week, or you can work up to 40 hours a week. So you can work it part-time, you can work it full-time, you can do it, you know, and there's so many different, you can work for cruise lines. So many different things you can work for.
But that's awesome. That's cool.
G&G Virtual Services. So I just basically hire people, and I am what you would consider an IBO, which is an independent business owner.
Got it.
And so because I'm an IBO, you would be able to come in and work under me as under G&G Virtual Services, but you would still be your own work from home, self-employed. If that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I'll definitely make sure to drop, you know, the link or whatever into the video so people can reach out to you. Yeah. Well, that's really all the time that we had. So I'm sure that you guys you might even see Tiwanda at a symposium.
Hopefully.
Somewhere, if you're a first sergeant. And I really hope that you guys enjoy this video. Thank you so much again
You're
for
welcome. Thank you for
being
having
here.
me. I
Of
appreciate
course.
it.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how it turns out.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. And thank you
Yeah.
again for sharing your story
No
and
problem.
being able to share it with other people.
Thank you for your appearance, Lily.
Yes, thank you, Lily, even though she's knocked out.
She's knocked out. No, she just wanted to be in it.
All right, guys. Well, till next time. Thanks again.
Have a good day. Thank you.
All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Okay, Lily, go on. Go on.
like what
No,
I
you're
wanted to
you're not getting up here.
Oh, I just.
Oh, did you
dropped
not
my
that?
lemon. Now I just up the lemonade. Nope.